My name is Miles Carter, and last month, I earned something I never thought I would, something that should have mattered. After 15 years at Briarwood Foundry, 12-hour shifts, busted knuckles, double pay on holidays, and not one damn complaint, I was promoted to operations supervisor. Not temporary, not acting, real title, real raise. It came with a gray laminated badge that didn't smell like sweat, a reserved parking spot near the east gate, and an office with walls that didn't rattle when the forge fired up. I should have felt proud. I should have felt seen. I came home late that night, a pizza box in one hand and the letter from corporate still warm from the printer in the other. Delia was curled up on the couch, legs folded beneath her, scrolling through her phone like the rest of the world didn't exist. Her glass of red wine was sweating on a coaster I built for her last Christmas. She didn't look up. I got it, I said, standing there, trying not to grin like a damn schoolboy. They made it official today, operations supervisor. Full benefits. 5-figure bump in pay. She blinked at me. Not even a full blink, just the slow kind, like maybe she didn't hear me or didn't want to. Then she offered a smile so faint it felt like a leftover. That's great, honey. That was it. No, I'm proud of you. No hug. Not even a toast with that wine she kept swirling like it had secrets in it. She just turned her eyes back to her phone, thumbs tapping out something more interesting than the man who'd been breaking his back for years to give her a better life. I stood there for a few more seconds, like maybe if I gave her time to process it, she'd say something else. But the silence stretched, tight and ugly, until the microwave beeped in the kitchen. I took my box of lukewarm pizza and went upstairs. Then came the dinner. Delia had organized it, said it was just a little something with her family to celebrate. I should have known better. Her brother Reese was there, grinning like always, sipping on that top-shelf bourbon he only brought out when he wanted to make sure everyone noticed how expensive it was. Her parents, Darlene and Ken, had driven down from Covington. Even her cousin Jasmine showed up in heels too high for a family table and a dress that looked like it cost more than our water heater. The food was good, I'll give them that. Delia made the baked mac the way I liked it, and her mother brought those damn deviled eggs I could never say no to. But all through dinner, the talk was about Trent. Delia's ex, Trent, just bought a new condo downtown, her dad said at one point, like he was proud of him. He's in management now too. Corporate level. I chewed my chicken and stayed quiet. We made it to dessert before it happened. Reese stood up, raised his glass, and grinned like a man who'd been waiting all night for his moment. Here's to Miles, he said. Guess Briarwood needed a token idiot to fill the chair. Laughter. Real, full-throated laughter. Delia's laugh was the loudest. I looked at her. She didn't even glance back. I felt something inside me twist, something that had been coiled too tight for too long. I could feel the back of my neck flush, and I focused on the flickering candle in the center of the table just to stop myself from reacting. Just a joke, I told myself. Just Reese being Reese. Then Jasmine giggled and added, still think Delia peaked with Trent, though. And right then, as if God himself was playing a cruel trick, Darlene raised her glass and said, to Trent, the one that got away. Glasses clinked. Smiles. Even a slow clap from Reese. Delia? She didn't flinch. She toasted. Drank. Smiled. I didn't say a word. I pushed my chair back slow and quiet, stood up, and walked out. No slamming. No shouting. Just left. The Kentucky air outside bit at my skin, but I didn't notice. I got into my truck, hands trembling, heart heavy. The street lamps buzzed above me, and I sat there staring through the windshield, trying to convince myself I was overreacting, that I was being sensitive, that maybe they didn't realize how it landed. But deep down, I knew better. Later that night, I got the text. Delia, from upstairs, while I was still in the garage pretending to organize my old tool shelf. Don't be dramatic. It was a joke. That was her response. Not sorry. Not they went too far. Not I should have said something. Just that. A joke. They laughed at me like I was some sad clown in a uniform that didn't fit. Laughed at my hard-earned promotion like it was a participation trophy. And the woman I married, the one I thought would always have my back, laughed right along with them. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I lay on the old couch in the den, staring at the dark ceiling, hearing the echo of their voices in my skull over and over. Guess Briarwood needed a token idiot. To Trent, the one that got away. Don't be dramatic. I wasn't being dramatic. I was being dismissed, disrespected, erased. And in that quiet room, with only the ticking clock and my own breathing for company, I decided something I hadn't dared let myself consider before. Maybe the man they laughed at wasn't the punchline. Maybe he was just done. And maybe next time, I wouldn't just leave the table. I'd flip the whole damn thing. I didn't go to work the next morning. Didn't call in either. I just got in the truck before sunrise, hands shaking as I turned the key, and drove south. No real plan, just out. Out of that house. Out of that silence. Out of that marriage I wasn't sure I was even in anymore. The roads were still wet from last night's rain, mist hanging low over the asphalt like smoke. The headlights cut through it in a weak, almost reluctant beam, and for a moment, I wondered if I'd even packed my wallet. I didn't check. I didn't care. I must have driven for 4 hours before I realized where I was headed. Somerset. My uncle's old cabin sat near the lake, tucked behind a line of crooked trees and blackberry bushes. It had been years since I'd been there, but something about the gravel crunching under the tires and the side of that weather-stained porch made my chest loosen for the first time in weeks. My Uncle Harvey died 8 years ago, left the cabin to the family. My cousin Jaden was supposed to keep it up, and while we hadn't spoken in years, I knew he had too much guilt in his bones to let the place rot. Sure enough, the gutters were clear, the lock still stiff but working. I stepped inside and let the door shut behind me with a hollow thunk. It was dusty, the kind of dust that clings to forgotten places and things. But it wasn't dirty. A few spider webs in the corners, some scuff marks on the floor, but otherwise, the place looked like it had been waiting for someone. Waiting for me. I dropped my duffel bag on the old corduroy couch, kicked off my boots, and stood there in the quiet. No TV, no buzzing phone, no glances across the room that felt like accusations. Just silence. I grabbed a beer from the rusted mini fridge, lukewarm, stale, but I didn't care. Sat on the porch with my legs stretched out and the bottle sweating in my hand. The woods rustled around me, birds calling out like they hadn't seen another human in days. I leaned back in the old chair and stared out at the trees, the lake just beyond them glinting like a sheet of steel in the morning light. And that's when the question hit me. Not suddenly, not loud, but quiet, too quiet. When did I stop being a man? When did I stop being the person who was earned, not pitted? When did I go from the man who fixed everything with his hands to the man people laughed at over dinner like a broken tool in the junk drawer? Delia hadn't called. Not once. Not a single buzz or "Where are you?" or "Come home." The woman I married, who used to kiss my knuckles after long shifts, didn't seem to notice I was gone. Or worse, she noticed and didn't care. That silence, it said more than any argument ever could. It told me exactly where I stood. It told me I was furniture. Background. The guy who paid the bills and took the jokes. I thought about that night again, the laughter, the clinking glasses, the way Delia's smile curled at the edges when her family roasted me alive like it was just sport. And the worst part? I didn't defend myself. I let it happen. I let them carve into me like I didn't bleed. But out here, on this porch with no one watching, I felt something else stir beneath the hurt. A slow, quiet burn. The kind of heat that comes not from anger, but from recognition. Recognition that I had let this happen. I gave them the benefit of the doubt one too many times. Took the hits and told myself I was being patient. Being mature. Being a man. But real men don't sit at tables where they're not respected. Real men don't stay where they're only useful when quiet. The sun slid higher in the sky. I pulled out my phone finally. No missed calls. One text from my supervisor, Angelo. Everything okay? We good for the team meeting Monday? I stared at it for a while. My thumb hovered, then I typed. Taking a few days. Personal. He responded 2 minutes later. Got it. Take care of yourself. At least someone noticed. I didn't text Delia. Didn't tell her where I was. I wanted to see how long it would take before she cared enough to ask. By nightfall, still nothing. I charged my phone in the kitchen using an old outlet that sparked when I plugged it in, then curled up on the couch under a scratchy wool blanket. I didn't sleep well. The quiet was loud, and every creak in the floorboards felt like a memory I hadn't asked to remember. The next morning, I shaved. I don't know why. Maybe to remind myself I still had a face worth seeing. The mirror over the bathroom sink was cracked at the corner, but the man staring back looked clearer than he had in months. There were bags under my eyes, lines on my forehead I hadn't noticed before, but there was also something new. Focus. Maybe even resolve. Around noon, Jaden showed up. I heard the truck first, the sputter of that engine he refused to replace, and then the screen door creaked open. He stepped inside without knocking, holding a six-pack and a bag of chips like it was a damn cookout. You alive? he asked. Barely. He looked at me, nodded once, then set the beer down. Fridge still sucks. We didn't talk about Delia. We didn't talk about anything, really. Just sat on the porch like we used to when we were kids, watching the trees sway and making up names for the birds we couldn't identify. But in that silence, something healed a little. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring or what I was even going to do next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going back to the house that didn't notice I was gone. Not until I remembered who I was. I pulled back into our driveway 4 days later. The tires crunched against gravel like they were protesting my return, and for a moment, I just sat there behind the wheel, staring at the front door. The porch light was still on, burned all night, every night like it always did, whether I was there or not. Nothing had changed. Same wreath Delia hung 2 Christmases ago. Same potted plants she never watered. Same front step with the hairline crack she kept asking me to fix, even though she never said thank you when I did. I stepped inside, bracing for some reaction. Something. Anything. But Delia was in the kitchen, humming. She didn't jump when she heard the door. Didn't ask where I'd been. Just glanced over her shoulder, offered a smile like I'd returned from a quick jog, and turned back to whatever she was stirring. Hey, she said. Want dinner? I made cobbler. Like nothing had happened. Like we didn't just let 4 days pass without a word. Like I hadn't left wondering if we were even still married. I looked at her hands, how casually they moved, lifting the wooden spoon and scraping the bowl's sides. Like a woman at peace. Then I looked at her phone, face up beside the mixing bowl, and my chest pulled tight. Trent's name lit up the screen in a soft gray notification banner. I didn't say anything. Just walked upstairs, took a long shower, and lay on the bed with my eyes on the ceiling fan, letting it spin and spin as if it could pull the tension out of my body and fling it somewhere far away. That night, after she fell asleep with a smirk still clinging to her lips, I reached for her phone. It wasn't locked. It never had been. That used to mean trust. Now it just meant arrogance. I opened the message thread. There it was. Trent's name, bold and familiar. Dozens of messages, every few hours, it seemed. I scrolled. Old photos. Jokes. Flirty texts sent during work hours. One of them read, "Remember this spot?" Attached was a picture of our dog sitting on the bluff at Elkhorn Lake, except Trent was in the background. That was supposed to be our place. I'd taken Delia there the first summer we met. I taught her how to skip stones on that water. Now she was sending that photo to her ex like it was a shared secret. Another picture, Delia in that dark green dress she wore to the family dinner, the night they all laughed at me. She'd taken a mirror selfie. Below it, Trent had typed, "You wore that for me, didn't you?" She responded with a winking emoji and the words, "Maybe, winky face." I felt sick. And then the kicker, "Made your favorite cobbler today. Miss you." She had made cobbler that night. And she offered it to me first, like I was the one she'd made it for. Like I was still the man who mattered in this house. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I closed the thread, placed the phone exactly where I found it, and lay there in the dark with her soft, rhythmic breathing beside me. I didn't touch her. Didn't shift the bed. Just stared at the ceiling, letting my anger rise in slow waves, controlled, measured, patient. Because now I wasn't just dealing with betrayal. Now I was studying a pattern. She'd laughed when Reese called me a token idiot. She'd toasted her ex. She hadn't called me when I disappeared for 4 days. And now she was stirring batter in the kitchen while texting another man about missing him, wearing a smile she didn't give to me anymore. I started noticing the little things. How she always kept her phone face down around me, except tonight. Maybe she got careless. Maybe she thought I wouldn't care anymore. Or worse, maybe she thought I was too stupid to understand what was happening. At breakfast the next morning, she acted like a sitcom wife. Scrambled eggs, toast with strawberry jam, and that same humming, like she'd swallowed a tune she didn't want to share. I thanked her. She smiled like she deserved a prize. She mentioned going to her sister's baby shower next weekend. Said she might stay the night. I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I was listening now. Watching. Because when someone lies to you, you can either react with rage, or you can sharpen the blade. The next 3 days, I played my role perfectly. I came home on time. I asked about her day. I fixed the dishwasher she claimed was leaking and let her pat me on the shoulder like I was a dog who'd fetched a bone. I even kissed her forehead once, and I swear I saw a guilt flash in her eyes for a second. But then she turned away and said, "Text Reese for me. Will you? Tell him we'll see him Sunday." I waited until she left the room. I picked up her phone and scrolled through the threads again. There was no recent conversation with Reese, but there were plenty with Trent. One of them said, "Sunday's still good. Can't wait. Same condo." I memorized the address. I knew that street. Near the river. Close to where Reese used to rent before he moved out of state. Trent had a condo there now. Of course he did. That Sunday, she left in a floral sundress, lipstick on and earrings swinging like wind chimes. "Wish me luck," she said at the door. "For Reese's obnoxious stories or the baby shower games?" She laughed. "Both." Then she was gone. I didn't go inside. I grabbed my keys and followed. She took the same route she always did when she claimed she was going to see her brother, north toward the river, past the old tobacco plant, and through the industrial loop that bled into the nicer parts of town. I followed 2 cars behind, giving her enough space to breathe without ever losing sight of her brake lights. My palms sweated on the steering wheel, not from nerves exactly, but from the kind of cold clarity that sets in when you already know the truth and you're just waiting for proof. She turned down Riverview Lane, a street lined with condos pretending to be upscale. Neatly manicured hedges. Matching mailboxes. That fake suburban polish that never fooled me. She slowed at a rust-colored building with unit numbers printed on a brass plate by the door, Trent's condo. I pulled over half a block back, parked under a lopsided oak tree, and killed the engine. She sat in her car for a second, checked her reflection in the mirror, reapplied lip gloss. Then she got out, smoothed the back of her dress, and walked to the front door like she belonged there. She didn't even look over her shoulder. That's what struck me. No paranoia. No hesitation. Just the boldness of someone convinced she'd never be caught. Or worse, convinced I wouldn't care. I waited. 3 hours. I didn't even turn the radio on. Just sat there with the windows cracked and the sound of the river in the distance. I counted the people who walked by. A woman with a poodle. 2 kids on bikes. An older man with grocery bags. Not once did I see her come out. The sun dropped lower in the sky, the heat giving way to a cool breeze, and still I waited. Eventually, around dusk, the door opened. She stepped out, laughing. Not just a polite laugh, the kind that made her tilt her head and press a hand to her chest. The kind she used to give me. Trent walked her out. He wasn't even trying to hide it. He stood close. Too close. Touched her back. Said something low that made her laugh again. Then she got into her car and drove off like she was coming back from church. I gave it 5 minutes, then drove home. She was already there when I walked in, flipping through a stack of mail like she hadn't just stepped out of someone else's arms. "How was Reese?" I asked, standing in the doorway with my boots still on. She didn't flinch. Same as always, obnoxious. She smirked and tossed a utility bill on the counter. "His new girlfriend's a nightmare." She lied without blinking. I wanted to ask what Trent's new cologne smelled like. I wanted to ask how many times she'd used my savings to pay for hotel rooms or gas money or take out for a man who once left her for a barmaid in Nashville. But I didn't. Because the truth was, I wasn't even angry anymore. Something colder had taken root. That's when it clicked for me. She thought I'd never notice. That I'd keep playing the family clown. The harmless, hard-working husband everyone could poke fun at over drinks while she played victim in private. They saw me as soft. Predictable. Too slow to act. Too polite to challenge anything that made them uncomfortable. But they were wrong. I'd spent most of my life putting others first. Fixing leaky pipes, double-checking door locks, remembering birthdays that no one remembered back. I thought patience was a virtue. I thought loyalty would be rewarded. But all it had done was paint a target on my back and hand them the brush to color me as they pleased. I thought about Reese, about the smirk on his face when he made the toast, the way the others followed suit. I thought about the dinner table and how Delia didn't flinch when they humiliated. The next morning, I changed the locks. I told her the deadbolt had been sticking and replaced it while she was at work. She didn't ask questions. That was her first mistake. She'd gotten so used to my silence. She didn't recognize when it turned into strategy. I created a new folder on my laptop, labeled Receipts. I started documenting everything. Dates, times, messages, bank transfers. If I was going to be the clown in their circus, I might as well gather my popcorn and take notes before I burned the whole tent down. She asked me that night why I seemed distant. "Just tired," I said. "Long week." She nodded, kissed my cheek, said she appreciated how steady I was. I smiled back. The next time she left to see Reese, I let her. This time I didn't follow. I stayed home and logged into our joint account, downloading transaction histories. She was using the credit card we both had access to. Uber rides. boutique wine, air freshener, and room service. The receipts didn't lie. Even when she did, she came back late. Said Reese had made her watch a horror movie that gave her nightmares. I nodded. Sounds like him. She kissed my forehead again and went to shower. I looked at the hallway mirror and barely recognized the man staring back at me. Not because he was broken, but because for the first time in a long time, he wasn't confused. He wasn't wondering. He wasn't waiting for permission to feel betrayed. He knew, and he had a plan. It started with a knock on my office door, 3 slow taps. I looked up from the production log I was reviewing, and there stood Angelo, my supervisor, shoulders stiff, mouth tight. He wasn't the kind of man who made small talk when something was wrong. His background was military, structured, focused, no wasted words. So when he opened the door and said, "Miles, got a minute?" I knew it wasn't about inventory counts or the malfunctioning conveyor belt on line 3. I followed him down the hallway past the HR office and into a side room they usually reserved for team briefings. Except today, there was no whiteboard or safety poster pinned up. Just a table, 2 chairs, and a sealed manila folder waiting like a trap. Angelo gestured for me to sit. He stayed standing, leaning slightly against the wall, arms crossed. "I'll get to it quick," he said, looking me straight in the eye. "Someone filed a complaint." I blinked. "Eh, what?" He reached for the folder, opened it, and slid a few printed pages across the table. "Says you've been erratic, disrespectful, aggressive. There's mention of inappropriate jokes, questionable decisions on write-ups. Says you've been unfit lately." My stomach dropped. "Who filed this?" He shook his head. "Anonymous. But HR had to bring it to me. Said they're looking into it." I scanned the documents. None of it made sense. The incidents were vague. Unprofessional tone, overuse of authority, unsubstantiated disciplinary actions. And then I saw something that made the blood drain from my face. One line referenced a comment I had made 2 weeks ago, at home, in the kitchen, joking with Delia about a coworker who kept falsifying clock-ins. I'd said, half laughing, "At this point I should just write the damn guy up for being born." That exact phrase was in the complaint. I stared at it like it might change. But there it was, word for word. A joke I made in my own home, during dinner, while she laughed and said I was being dramatic. That's when the trap fully closed around me. Only one person could have known that. I looked up at Angelo. "You know me. Do I seem unstable to you?" "No," he said flatly. "That's why I pulled you in before HR did. Something about this feels off." I left the meeting tight-lipped, holding that folder like it was radioactive. My fingers tingled. My brain wouldn't stop spinning. If Delia filed it, then this wasn't just about disrespect anymore. This was a strategy. A calculated move to set a legal foundation. Make me look like the problem. Make her exit clean. I got back to my office, shut the door, and sat at my desk without turning on the monitor. I stared at the wood grain, every detail of the past few months flashing through my mind like a film reel. Her silence. Her laughter at that dinner. The text to Trent. The lies. And now this, HR complaints using language lifted straight from our private conversations. I opened our home computer that night while Delia was out picking up wine. She'd left her email open, didn't even bother logging out. I searched for keywords. Found drafts. Templates. Notes she typed to herself. Make it seem gradual, document Miles's attitude. Another draft read, "If I'm going to file, it needs to seem like I've tried talking to him." There was even a timeline she'd mapped out. Meetings, purchases, dates she'd tell people she felt unsafe. It was all there. Like a war plan. She was building a case. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about love lost. This was a setup. Legal. Financial. Complete. She was laying the groundwork to walk away clean while burying me under a pile of HR allegations and marital complaints. If she could paint me unstable, take a few witness statements from her side of the family, and frame herself as the calm, rational partner, she could leave with the money. Maybe even the house. She knew me well enough to predict my moves. She counted on my silence, on my tendency to avoid confrontation, on the fact that I worked long hours and barely had time to breathe, let alone notice a carefully orchestrated character assassination unfolding around me. But she underestimated one thing. I pay attention. When the stakes are high enough, I stop blinking. I stop reacting. I listen. I calculate. And when I decide to respond, I don't raise my voice. I raise the ground they think they're standing on. I started collecting. Screenshots of messages. Withdrawals from our joint account. Copies of her notes. I backed up my work communications, including the positive performance reviews Angelo had given me. I installed a home surveillance system, not because I thought she'd do anything reckless, but because I needed records. Proof. She came home late again that week, tipsy, cheeks flushed from wine or attention or both. I sat at the kitchen table reading a work document when she dropped her purse on the counter and said, "Still sulking?" I looked up, just tired. She smiled without softness. "Maybe you need time off." I stared at her a moment longer than I should have. "Maybe I do." She went upstairs humming. I went back to my folder. It was a Wednesday night when I noticed the first withdrawal. Nothing dramatic, just $120 at a boutique I'd never heard of, listed under LC Home and Gifts. I stared at the bank statement on my phone while the TV played some documentary I wasn't watching. Delia was upstairs in the shower. I scrolled down. Another one, $1.85. Then $212. More small charges scattered over the past few weeks. One or two wouldn't have raised a flag. But the longer I scrolled, the more they started to add up. I logged into the joint account from my laptop, sorted the activity by date, then by vendor, then by amount. When the math hit the four-figure mark, I pushed back from the table and stared at the screen like it might confess something. $9,780.22 had disappeared over the last 6 weeks, spread across wine purchases, boutique stores, digital payments, and one large transfer labeled only as personal reimbursement. I leaned back in my chair, my chest tight, the kind of tight that doesn't come from panic, but from realization. I had built this account. Every overtime shift, every bonus I didn't spend, every Christmas I skipped the new jacket to make sure her gift stayed wrapped in silver foil. That money was the last thing I thought we had in common, something untouched, something we could still say we shared. Until now. When she came downstairs, towel around her hair and lotion on her legs, I asked, calmly, quietly, "Delia, have you made any big purchases lately?" She barely paused. "What?" "Just noticed some money moving out of the account. Boutique stores, cash transfers." She waved her hand like she was swatting at a fly. "Oh, that. Yeah, just paying down some debt. You know that old credit card from college?" I finally decided to clear it. I nodded slowly. "Almost 10 grand? Her tone sharpened. "Jesus, are you monitoring every dollar now? You've never cared before." "I didn't have to," I said. She scoffed. "God, you're acting like a jealous lunatic. Do you want receipts? You want to see every tampon and toaster I've ever bought?" I kept my voice level. "No. Just the debt." She grabbed her wine glass and stalked out of the room. "You've changed, Miles. And not in a good way." The front door slammed a minute later. No purse, no shoes. Just gone. Like she needed air, because being asked for basic transparency was now offensive. But I didn't follow. I didn't call. I just sat there and reopened the account history. I printed everything. Every line. Every receipt. I highlighted the biggest charges and stuck them in the folder I'd labeled for later. The lies weren't even the worst part. It was the confidence behind them, the assumption that I'd never ask, never look, never notice. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed while she tossed and turned beside me, muttering something about the AC being too cold. At 3:17 a.m., she finally stilled. I got up, walked down to the garage, and opened the locked drawer where I kept the backup phone we used during our road trips. No one else had the number. I charged it, installed a secure app, and began copying documents over. Quietly, methodically. The next day at work, I barely said 2 words to anyone. Not because I was angry, but because my mind had crossed into another place. A place where everything was measured. Where emotion had no room anymore. I was calculating now. I wasn't trying to fix the marriage. I wasn't even trying to understand it. I was gathering what I needed for the end. I checked her credit history when I got home. It wasn't hard. I'd done our taxes for 8 years. Knew her passwords, her logins, her last 4 digits. There was no credit card from college. No debt. Her credit was clean. Pristine. Practically glowing. The only recent activity was a soft pull for a condo lease, in both her name and someone else's. I stared at the screen until my hands went numb. The second name? Trent Morrison. They'd applied for a lease together. Last month. The same month she'd laughed when Reese called me a joke. The same month she'd stopped calling me babe and started using silence like a scalpel. I sat there in my office, the lights off, and stared at the glow of the screen. My ears rang. I felt like I'd swallowed gravel. I clicked open my screenshot app and saved everything. The lease inquiry. The timestamp. The broker's information. I opened her text messages that night after she fell asleep, curled up like a child in the bed we'd bought on a 36-month financing plan. There it was. Her last message to Trent. We're good to move in next month. He hasn't even noticed. Not if. Not maybe. Not let's wait and see. She was gone. In every way but physical. The body beside me wasn't mine. The smile she wore at dinner was meant for someone else. She had moved on with another man using my name, my money, and my trust like stolen tools to build a new home. They weren't just having an affair. They were building a life. And they thought I hadn't noticed. But I had. And I wasn't going to beg her to stay. I was going to make sure she never forgot how it ended. The first thing the mechanic said when I walked back into the garage was, "You're not gonna like this, man." It was a simple oil change, nothing major. I brought in the truck on a Saturday because I figured the distraction would keep my head straight. The cabin still smelled like her, Delia's citrusy perfume lingering in the fabric no matter how many times I left the windows down. I didn't expect anything out of the ordinary. I just needed an hour of waiting room radio, stale coffee, and the kind of peace that came from men with grease under their nails talking about cars, not betrayal. "What's up?" I asked, leaning against the service counter. The guy scratched the back of his neck and nodded toward the bay. "Passenger seat. Found a bag. Figured I'd let you check it before we touched anything." I frowned. "A bag?" "Yeah, like a little makeup pouch. Kinda wedged under the seat." "Thought it might be yours." I followed him back, heart already picking up speed. My truck was mine. My one place. My shell. The only thing no one else really touched. Except her, apparently. He opened the passenger door and reached down. His hand came up with a small navy blue bag with a gold zipper, sleek, clean, not dusty like it had been there for long. He handed it to me, then backed off like he already knew he didn't want to know what was inside. I opened it. First thing I saw was a hotel keycard. Plastic. No branding. Just a tiny barcode and room number written in marker, 327. Next, a crumpled receipt from La Jolla and 2 entrees, 2 drinks, 1 dessert. Paid in cash. Then came the note. Folded twice, tucked into the side pocket. Tonight was magic. Let's never stop. T. That letter T hit me like a nail through the chest. I didn't need to ask. I didn't need handwriting analysis. My blood didn't need more proof. T was Trent. And this wasn't just emotional anymore. This was physical. Tangible. Real. She'd been in my truck. With his bag. Driving to that hotel. Lying about baby showers and brotherly visits while carrying around tokens of their nights together like souvenirs. I closed the pouch slowly, fingers steady. My insides were screaming, but my face didn't flinch. I nodded to the mechanic, thanked him, and walked back to the counter like it was just another Saturday. But everything had changed. When I got home, Delia was in the kitchen again, barefoot, wearing that same old hoodie she always pulled on after one of her girl nights. Her hair was down, lips glossed, and she smelled like a perfume I hadn't bought her in over 2 years, Joe Malone's Orange Blossom. A scent she claimed gave her headaches. I stood in the doorway and watched her for a moment. She was dancing slightly, humming to herself as she stirred a pot. Like life was beautiful. Like her lies hadn't unraveled and spilled into the cracks of my truck. She turned and smiled when she saw me. "Hey, babe, want to taste this? Where you coming from?" I asked. She blinked, then shrugged. "Reese's." He wanted help picking a birthday gift for Mom. She lied so easily it chilled me. I nodded and stepped forward, kissed her forehead. "Smells good," I said. She laughed. "Wait till you taste it." I used real garlic this time. I let her serve me. Let her talk. Let her think nothing had changed. And while she chattered about her brother's lack of style and her mother's obsession with planters, I nodded and listened. But behind my smile, I was cataloging everything. The inflections. The tells. The language she used when she was weaving new fiction. She never once mentioned the hotel. Never once admitted she'd been anywhere near La Jolla. She didn't know I had the bag. She didn't know I'd already scanned the receipt, photographed the keycard, and emailed the images to myself in case she lost them later. After dinner, she got a phone call. Trent, I assumed. She took it upstairs, said it was Lena from work. I gave her 15 minutes. Then I followed, slow and quiet, stopping at the bottom of the stairs to listen. She was whispering. "No, he didn't notice. I swear. I left it in the back. Yeah, probably rolled under. I'll check tomorrow." She paused, then laughed. "I know. I miss you too. I walked back to the living room, sat on the couch, and stared at the family photo on the wall. Us at Myrtle Beach 2 years ago. Me in cargo shorts, her in that red bikini wrap, both smiling like we hadn't seen the cliff ahead. She came down 20 minutes later, plopped beside me, and sighed like it had been a long day. "Lena's losing it," she said, eyes on the TV. "Her boss is nuts." I wrapped an arm around her, let her rest her head on my chest. "Sounds rough?" I murmured. She nodded. "Thanks for understanding." I kissed the top of her head. "Always." But I wasn't understanding anything anymore. I was documenting. I was preparing. That night, while she slept with one hand sprawled across my side of the bed, I went to the garage again, pulled out the flash drive, labeled the next folder, passenger seat, uploaded the photo of the note, the receipts, the keycard image. Then I opened a new Word doc and began writing down everything: times, dates, dialogue. I even included her quote from the phone call. He didn't notice. I swear. She was right. Until now, I hadn't noticed. But now, I saw everything. And soon, so would she. Rochelle Granger's name had come up 3 times in the last 2 years. Once from a guy at work who said she handled his nasty divorce and left his ex with nothing but a futon and a microwave. Once in a local article titled, "10 Attorneys You'd Want on Your Side, Not Against You." And once, oddly enough, in a joke Delia made after a girl's brunch. "If I ever needed to clean house," she'd said, sipping her mimosa, "I'd call Rochelle." Everyone laughed. Except me. I'd remembered the name. Her office sat above a wine shop on Frankfurt Avenue, quaint, old brick with a wrought iron staircase and a green door that didn't advertise anything but a small plaque that read Granger Law. No receptionist. No logo. Just an old bell that chimed when I pushed the door open. Inside, it was colder than expected. Clean lines, gray walls, a single orchid on the windowsill. Rochelle herself was in the corner office, gray blazer, sharp jawline, glasses perched low on her nose, reading a document with the kind of focus that made you forget to breathe. She looked up when I knocked, like she already knew I'd come. "Miles Carter," she said, standing. Her handshake was firm. "You've got the eyes of a man who's done waiting." I didn't argue. Just sat down and opened the folder I'd brought. No small talk. No pleasantries. I pulled out the printouts, screenshots of Delia's texts, the photo of the bag, the receipts, the timeline. I slid everything across the desk, one piece at a time, laying out the narrative like an autopsy. "I need to end this," I said. "But I want it clean. And I wanted to cost them." She didn't blink. Just started reading. 10 minutes passed without a word. She examined everything like it was a case file, like the ink itself could testify. Then she looked up. "You want to make this quiet or devastating?" "Both," I said. "In that order." She nodded slowly. Infidelity, financial misconduct, possible cohabitation during the marriage, and digital documentation tying it together. That gives us leverage, significant leverage. And if you want to file on the grounds of marital fraud and depletion of shared assets, we can do that too. I also want a restraining order, I added. Not for her. For him. He's been harassing me through her indirectly. Showing up in my space. Riding in my truck. She scribbled something in her notes. Then we'll cite emotional distress and third-party interference. But we need to move quickly. Once she realizes what you've seen, she'll lawyer up. She won't see it coming, I said. Rochelle smiled. Then let's keep it that way. By the end of the hour, we had everything set in motion. Divorce papers filed under fault-based grounds. Financial forensics to trace the withdrawals. A motion to freeze our joint accounts until the settlement. A formal rebuttal to the HR complaint, drafted and ready to send to Angelo with evidence proving Delia's involvement. And the restraining order request, signed and sealed. I signed the paperwork with a pen that felt too light for what it meant. My hand didn't shake. Not once. When I walked out of that office, the sun was glaring off the windshield of my truck like a spotlight. I climbed in, started the engine, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. The plan was in motion now. No more guessing. No more waiting for her to slip. I had the truth, the timeline, and the receipts. Delia still thought I was the man who had been before I broke. She was about to learn how wrong she'd been. That night, I got home before her. I sat at the kitchen island sipping coffee, the documents still fresh in my mind. When she walked in smiling, cheeks flushed, I didn't look up right away. I just listened to her toss her keys in the bowl, kick off her shoes, and call out, "You're home early." Felt like cooking, I said. She wandered in, eyebrows raised. You? Cooking? Is it the apocalypse? I smiled. Something like that. She leaned over the pot, inhaling the steam. Smells good. Is that rosemary? I nodded, stirring slowly. You should sit. We've got things to go over. Her smile wavered, just slightly. What things? Budget stuff, I said casually. Taxes. Maybe a few receipts. She hesitated, then sat across from me, fingers drumming the counter. Okay. I placed a red flash drive on the table. She looked at it, then back at me. What's that? Everything, I said. Every lie. Every charge. Every message. It's backed up already, so you don't need to worry about deleting it. Her face paled. Miles, what is this? I met with Rochelle Granger today, I said, still stirring the pot. Divorce has been filed. Accounts frozen. HR complaint rebutted. Your boyfriend? He's flagged for interference. By the end of the week, the restraining order will be in his mailbox. Delia blinked, like the words hit her a few beats too late. You're not serious. Oh, I'm very serious. She reached for the flash drive. I slid it back. That's for the judge, I said. But I wanted you to see it first. She stood abruptly, knocking over her chair. This is insane. You're making a mistake. I turned off the stove. No, I made a mistake staying quiet for this long. She stared at me, breathing shallow, hands twitching like she didn't know where to place them. You're blowing up our life over, what, jealousy? No, I said. Over betrayal. Over manipulation. Over the fact that you used my truck, my money, and my silence to build a future with someone else. A man you swore was just a chapter you closed. Turns out, you were writing a sequel. Her voice dropped. I didn't think you'd ever fight back. I know, I said, stepping past her. That's what makes this so satisfying. I left her in the kitchen, her breath shallow, eyes glassy, staring at the life unraveling in her hands. She didn't chase me, didn't scream, just stood there like a statue in a burning room. The next morning, Rochelle sent the documents to her office, her email, and her parents. I changed the garage code, had her access removed from all joint accounts. My paycheck was rerouted. Every inch of my life secured, backed up, restructured. Delia was in shock. And Trent? Well, his name would show up in court before he ever set foot near my home again. The game had shifted, and I no longer played the fool. She didn't say a word the moment she stepped into the kitchen and saw it, the plain white envelope sitting right there on the marble counter next to the coffee maker. No name, no stamp, just one, sharp corner slightly curled as if it had been waiting all day to deliver the blow. I didn't greet her. I stayed leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, my eyes calm in a way that made her uneasy. She took one look at the envelope, then looked at me. Her hand hovered over it for a moment before she picked it up, lips pressing into a flat line. What is this? She asked, her voice too smooth, trying to sound unbothered. I didn't answer. She opened the flap and pulled out the papers inside. The divorce petition, the asset freeze confirmation, the notarized notice of our joint account audit, and a printed screenshot of her text message to Trent. Her expression cracked, just slightly, a twitch near the corner of her mouth. You went through my phone? I shrugged. You left it unlocked. I went through my life. She flipped through the papers in a panic, eyes darting over the legal language, the clipped, efficient language Rochelle had masterfully assembled. Financial misconduct, marital fraud, intentional deception, infidelity. Jesus, Miles. This is a little dramatic, don't you think? There it was again, dramatic. The same word she'd used when her brother humiliated me at that dinner. When I confronted her about the withdrawals. When I questioned the missing money, the overnight trips, the lies. But this time, the word didn't land like it used to. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out a flash drive. I walked over to her, slowly, deliberately, and laid it gently on the counter next to the folder. She stared at it like it might explode. That's the copy, I said. Screenshots, photos, statements. Everything you've done. Everything you said I wouldn't notice. She opened her mouth, closed it again. I watched her chest rise and fall, her composure thinning by the second. I was going to tell you, she said, but the sentence had no conviction. I nodded. But you didn't. She finally looked up at me. Really looked. You were so detached. You stopped showing up. You worked late. You didn't talk to me anymore. And you texted Trent while I grilled dinner on the porch. You met him in hotels while I paid our bills. You laughed with him the same night you toasted my failure. Her lips trembled. Not from sadness. From realization. She had misjudged the moment. Misread the man she thought she could keep in place. This doesn't have to be ugly, she said. Oh, but it already is, I replied. She took a shaky breath and dropped into the kitchen chair, the envelope still in her hands. You blindsided me. I tilted my head. You applied for a lease with another man. You used our savings to pay for hotel rooms and wine nights while I was scraping grease off my palms and working late to build a life I thought we were still sharing. It wasn't supposed to go that far, she whispered. But it did. Her silence folded around the room like a blanket full of pins. She looked smaller now, shoulders hunched, voice softer, like she was trying to shrink her way out of it. I didn't gloat. I didn't raise my voice. I had already won the only fight that mattered, the one for clarity. She tried again. You're throwing everything away. All these years. I shook my head. You threw it away. I just finally caught it midair. She stood, suddenly full of breath, pacing the tile like a tiger testing its cage. You don't understand how lonely I've been. You don't get what it's like being ignored in your own home. Don't. I cut in, my voice quiet but sharp. Don't spin this. You weren't lonely. You were bored. And you looked for a better deal. Except now, the man you dismissed is the man who's setting the terms. She went cold at that. I saw her face twist, between shame and fury. You're not going to get away with this, she hissed. I raised an eyebrow. With what? Holding you accountable? Showing a judge the paper trail you left wide open? I'll fight this, she said. You think Rochelle scares me? I smiled then. Just a little. No, I think the truth does. She stormed off, disappearing into the hallway. I heard drawers slam, then the creak of the closet door. The wheels of her old carry-on thudded against the hardwood floor like punctuation. She came back through the kitchen with a hoodie draped over her arm, a phone charger in her hand, and the expression of someone who just realized she lost control of the narrative. She paused at the door. Where am I supposed to go? You'll think of something, I said. You always do. She hesitated, then opened the door. As she stepped out, I added, your parents will see that flash drive tonight. So will HR. So will the judge. Her hand froze on the doorknob. Then she was gone. Just like that. The door clicked shut, and for the first time in what felt like years, the house felt still. No tension pressing against the walls. No background noise of secrets whispered behind bathroom doors. Just silence. Real silence. I walked back into the kitchen and poured myself a drink. Nothing special. Just the cheap whiskey I used to keep in the cabinet for cold nights and worse news. I sipped it slow and looked at the empty chair where she'd sat just minutes ago. The envelope still sat on the counter, but the weight of it was gone. It had done its job. That night, her brother Reese sent me a text. Didn't know it had gone that far. I stared at it. 3 seconds. 5. Then I locked my phone and set it face down. No reply. Because some things don't deserve one. Let them sit with their silence, just like I had to. Delia's lease with Trent? Voided within the week. Turns out when you submit a full legal complaint detailing financial fraud and misrepresentation during the lease application, brokers listen. Especially when you attach the paper trail. The screenshots. The withdrawals. The can't wait to move in together text. The leasing office called me directly, not because they had to, but because, in their words, we've never seen a situation so cleanly documented. They canceled the lease. The deposit, almost $4,000 from our drained joint account, was forfeit. I didn't smile when I read the confirmation email. I didn't pump my fist. I just folded the printout neatly and placed it in the final folder of my case. One more brick in the wall she thought she'd scale. Her parents tried calling twice the next day. First Arlene, then Ken. I didn't answer. Not because I was angry, but because I had nothing left to explain. They were at the dinner. They heard the toast. They watched me sit there in silence while they toasted Trent, their daughter's ex-boyfriend, the so-called one that got away. They saw their son-in-law, the man who paid for her dental plan, who fixed their sink on a Sunday, publicly humiliated. And they said nothing. Laughed, even. They chose their silence. Now they could live in it. But I wasn't done. I opened my email, attached the family photo someone took during that dinner, Reese's hand raised in a cheer, Delia mid-laugh, her dress the same one she later sent a mirror selfie of to Trent with the caption, "Did I wear this for you?" Maybe, winky face. I paired that photo with 3 other attachments. 1. Her text, "Miss you. Made your favorite cobbler tonight." 2. The screenshot from her application, co-lease with Trent Morrison, move-in date pending. 3. And the dinner receipt from La Jolla Inn, signed in her handwriting. Then I typed one line. You toasted the wrong man. Send it to Delia's family group chat. Send it to HR. Send it to her boss. She didn't respond, but Reese did. This is low, Miles. I left that one on read. 2 days later, HR formally dropped the complaint against me. I was called into Angelo's office again. Same folder on the table, but this time, he looked different. Not stiff. Not nervous. Just quiet. Measured. Why didn't you tell me it came from your wife? I leaned back in the chair. Would it have mattered? He paused. Not to me. But it would have changed how they handled it. He pushed the folder aside. We've cleared your record. Formal apology from corporates in the works. You're solid, Miles. You've got more grit than most men I know. That landed differently. Not because I needed the praise, but because it came from someone who'd seen me beyond the jokes. Beyond the dinner table mockery. Angelo had watched me come in early, leave late, cover for sick coworkers, and handle equipment breakdowns on weekends. He saw the man, not the puppet everyone else tried to make of me. I stood, shook his hand. Appreciate that. He smiled, then added, there's a promotion coming up. Regional Ops Lead. You should apply. Thought I'd already been made the joke of the last one, I said dryly. He didn't laugh. Then it's time they stopped laughing. I applied the next morning. Got the call 3 weeks later. Promoted. Again. No dinner this time. No family toast. Just a quiet morning, a new badge, and a corner office that smelled faintly of oil and coffee. I hung up my coat, sat at my new desk, and looked out the window at the plant floor. Not because I missed it, but because that's where I came from. Every bruise, every callus, every stupid joke, they all built the man sitting in that chair. Delia? She moved back into her childhood bedroom. The same one with the posters still tacked to the wall and the shelf full of old trophies she never earned but always bragged about. Trent didn't stick around. That's what her cousin Jasmine said, anyway. He bailed after the lease fell through. Claimed he wasn't ready for the drama. That word again. Drama. They called it drama. I called it documentation. Delia texted once. Just one line. I didn't think you'd ever fight back. I stared at it for a long while. Thought about replying. Thought about typing out all the things I wanted to say during those months she dismissed me. During the dinner where she laughed at me. During the night she came home smelling like another man's cologne. But I didn't send anything. I just blocked her number. Because the joke ended the moment I stopped laughing. 2 months later, I pulled up to the Briarwood parking lot in a car I never thought I'd own, black Ford Explorer, paid in full. Leather seats. Backup cam. Something reliable. Something mine. As I stepped out, someone from the plant floor waved. New guy, Dante. Young, eager, probably still had grease under his nails. Hey, Mr. Carter. Call me Miles, I said. He jogged over. Heard you're the reason Reese Hawthorne won't show his face at company events anymore. I smiled. Is that so? He laughed. Word travels. I patted his shoulder. Don't believe everything you hear. But yeah, maybe believe that one. I climbed the stairs to my new office. The hallway smelled like fresh paint. The nameplate on the door gleamed in the light. Miles Carter, Regional Operations Lead. I opened the door, walked in, and took a deep breath. This was mine. All of it. Not because it was handed to me, but because I earned it. Through silence. Through grit. Through knowing when to let people talk, and when to let them watch you rise. That afternoon, Rochelle called. Just got the final confirmation, she said. Divorce is finalized. Settlement's locked. She walked away with exactly what you wanted her to. Nothing? Less than nothing, she said. Her name's removed from the house. Car. Accounts. The court ruled in your favor on every point. Judge even made a comment about your comprehensive preparation. You might have missed your calling. I chuckled. Nah, this one was personal. Well, Rochelle said, her voice laced with satisfaction, you took your pain and turned it into precision. I don't see that often. Thanks, Rochelle. She paused. You ever need anything else, you call me. Hell, I'd hire you. I hung up and stared out my window. Across the parking lot, I saw Delia, standing next to her dad's car, arms folded. I scanning the building like she wasn't sure if she wanted to come in or keep walking. She didn't see me, but I saw her. She looked different now. Not the woman who glided through rooms with smug confidence. Not the woman who made jokes with her family at my expense. She looked like someone waiting for permission that wasn't coming. I watched her stand there for 2 more minutes. Then she turned and got into the car. Drove away. She never came back. That evening, I stopped at the liquor store by the old railroad tracks, picked out a bottle I'd only ever seen other people afford. A celebration, not for the divorce, but for surviving it with my dignity intact. When I got home, I opened the bottle and poured 2 fingers worth into a glass. I sat on the back porch, the one I'd rebuilt after the summer storm 2 years ago. The one Delia said was a waste of a weekend. It didn't feel wasted now. The sky was that soft orange pink you only see in Kentucky before a storm or a turning point. I leaned back, glass in hand, and breathed in the quiet. My quiet. No text buzz. No games. No lies. Just me. A man they laughed at. A man they underestimated. A man who doesn't beg anymore. I didn't toast the moment. Didn't need to. Because the real toast was in the silence. The joke was over. And I was no one's punchline anymore. I stood in the dusty shop that once belonged to my late uncle, my eyes taking in the faded shelves and forgotten trinkets that whispered secrets of a bygone era. At that very moment, I heard the sharp sound of laughter, Rachel's laughter. She stood by the counter, her head thrown back as if amused by some private joke, her words cutting deep despite the fragile calm in my heart. "Enjoy your inheritance of junk," she had sneered, her voice dripping with a venom I never thought I would taste. "My new boyfriend has a mansion and money." Each word felt like a deliberate stab at something I could not quite name, yet in that moment, anger did not rise as it should have. Instead, I managed a small, almost defeated smile and murmured, "Thank you." I could see the shock in her eyes. She expected devastation, tears, and desperate pleas for forgiveness, or even a cry for her to stay. But I was strangely empty, unresponsive to the cruelty of her farewell. With a quick motion, she snatched up her suitcase, slammed the door behind her, and walked away, leaving behind an echo of laughter and a deep, piercing void in my chest. I felt as if every step she took was erasing part of a shared past that I could never reclaim. That night, as the shop fell silent except for the creaking of old floorboards and the soft whisper of wind through broken windows, I remained. I took solace in the gentle act of dusting off my uncle's abandoned office, a small room cluttered with memories and mysteries. My hands, roughened by years of working with tools and lost hopes, brushed against a hidden drawer in the far corner. Something unusual caught my attention. With cautious curiosity, I pulled it open and found a small, antique key resting atop a folded, yellowed note. My heart quickened as I unfolded the fragile paper. The note was penned in my uncle's unmistakable handwriting, each stroke heavy with meaning and purpose. The words sent a shiver down my spine. "If you found this, you are ready. Follow the key and trust your instincts." I paused, the sound of my own breathing loud in the stillness of that neglected space. The note, the key, these were clues, remnants of a secret life my uncle had led, now left in my reluctant care. I felt as if the universe had conspired to deliver me this legacy, a mystery wrapped in the remnants of his past. As I held the cold metal of the key in my palm, its weight seemed to anchor me to a destiny I had never sought but now could not escape. I ran my fingers along its intricate design, each notch and curve a promise of secrets waiting to be unraveled. The shop around me seemed to lean in, as if listening to the silent conversation between memory and fate. In that long, heavy moment, I realized that nothing in my life would ever be the same again. The key was not just a tool. It was an invitation to step into a world of hidden truths, where every object in this neglected shop could tell a story, and every shadow might conceal a new beginning. I closed my eyes for a fleeting second, trying to gather my scattered thoughts, and when I opened them, I was ready. The laughter that had once filled the room with bitterness now echoed as a distant memory, drowned out by the pulsing call of mystery and destiny. I took a deep breath, and with the key still warm in my hand, I stepped further into the murk of the past, determined to follow the cryptic message and uncover the legacy my uncle had left behind. I clutched the old key tightly in my hand as I made my way back to the dusty office behind the shop. The faint scent of old paper and musty wood filled the air, and every step I took echoed like a quiet heartbeat in the silence. I searched every inch of that cramped room, my eyes straining to see any detail that might have been overlooked during all those years. Then, in the far corner of the office, I noticed a faint outline on the wall, a barely visible seam that seemed different from the rest. My heart pounded as I approached it, feeling the pull of something hidden, something that had been waiting just for me. I set the key against the outline, my hand trembling as I found a small keyhole concealed in the crevices of the old plaster. With a slow, deliberate motion, I turned the key. A sharp, metallic click rang out in the stillness, and the wall shuddered as a section slowly swung inward. Beyond the moving barrier lay a secret room, untouched by time and filled with the relics of a life I had only begun to understand. Dust motes danced in the slanting light as I stepped inside, my eyes wide with a mixture of wonder and trepidation. Every surface of the hidden room seemed to tell a story. Shelves lined the walls, each laden with gold coins that glimmered softly, ancient scrolls wrapped in faded cloth, and rare artifacts that whispered of distant lands and forgotten times. My gaze wandered to a pedestal standing proudly in the center of the room. Resting atop, it was an ornate box covered in strange symbols, its intricate designs inviting me to uncover its secrets. I felt as though I had been pulled into a mystery much larger than I could have ever imagined. Drawn by an irresistible urge, I reached out and ran my fingers along the cold surface of the box. As I did, I discovered a hidden compartment beneath it. There, almost as if it were placed there deliberately, lay an old leather-bound journal. The pages inside were filled with the familiar handwriting of my uncle, each word etched with care and hidden meaning. I flipped through the pages slowly, reading every line as if it were a letter meant only for me. The journal was more than just a record of his thoughts. It was a map, a guide, and a warning all rolled into one. Each entry deepened the mystery, making my pulse quicken with anticipation. My eyes stopped at the very last page where, in bold, almost desperate handwriting, were 6 words that made my stomach churn. You must find the heart's pieces. In that moment, every puzzle piece began to fall into place. My uncle had not simply been collecting old relics. He had been chasing something extraordinary, a legacy hidden in the folds of time and steeped in danger. The secret room, the artifacts, the ornate box, and now this journal. All of it pointed to a journey that would take me far beyond the quiet confines of our old shop. I stood in the dim light, feeling the weight of destiny on my shoulders. Each object in that secret room called out to me, urging me to look deeper, to trust in the hidden clues my uncle had left behind. It was as if the room itself was alive, its silence speaking volumes about the secrets it held. I slowly ran my fingers over the journal's cracked cover, knowing that its pages would guide me into a world of hidden treasures and ancient mysteries. In that quiet moment, surrounded by relics of the past, I felt a stirring of hope. The key in my hand, the journal in my grasp, and the secret room behind me all whispered of a future filled with adventure and the chance to unlock secrets that had long been buried. With a deep, steadying breath, I stepped further into that room, determined to follow every clue and uncover the hidden legacy my uncle had left behind, knowing full well that my life was about to change forever. I still remember that restless night after the secret room was revealed, a night when every sound and shadow held a hidden meaning. I had barely left the hidden chamber with the ornate box and my uncle's leather-bound journal when I felt a chill crawling along my spine. The echo of his parting words, "You must find the heart's pieces," resonated inside me like a solemn promise. As I stepped back into the main part of the shop, the familiar creaks of the old wooden floorboards seemed to whisper warnings that I was not alone. Every gust of wind outside carried an eerie hush, and every dark corner of the shop appeared to hide a secret. I made my way toward the front door, my mind reeling with unanswered questions. The cool night air brushed past me, stirring memories of quieter times before my life was upturned by this strange inheritance. Yet, something felt off. When I reached the door, I noticed that the lock, once a symbol of safety, bore deep, jagged scratches. It was as if someone had tried to force their way in, leaving behind a message meant only for me. My heart pounded harder, and a heavy dread settled over me like a thick fog. I knew that I was being watched. I paused and slowly turned around, scanning the darkened street beyond the glass of the shop's front window. In the flickering glow of a nearby street lamp, I caught a glimpse of a lone figure lingering on the sidewalk, a shadow that moved with a cautious, deliberate gait. Its presence sent a shiver through me, and for a long, Tense moment. I wondered if this stranger was friend or foe. My mind raced. Could it be a rival treasure hunter, another seeker of the heart's pieces? Or was it someone connected to my uncle's long-hidden past? I had no answers, only the cold certainty that my discovery had stirred something dangerous. With my heart still hammering in my chest, I retreated back into the dusty confines of the shop, where I locked the door behind me with trembling hands. I settled into a rickety wooden chair near an old table and opened the journal once more, determined to decipher the cryptic notes scrawled in my uncle's familiar handwriting. The pages revealed a maze of hints, names, dates, and mysterious symbols that hinted at an ancient legacy and a world of secrets beyond my comprehension. I read and reread each line, trying to piece together a map that could lead me safely through this newfound labyrinth of danger and destiny. The soft sound of footsteps outside jolted me from my reverie, and I froze, every muscle tense with alertness. I could hear the faintest shuffle near the door, as if someone was circling the shop, testing the lock, or simply watching from the shadows. I clenched the journal close to my chest, feeling its weight as a reminder of the quest ahead. I wondered if my uncle had ever expected me to face such perils when he entrusted me with his secrets. Perhaps he, too, had once felt the terror of being stalked by unseen eyes and the pressure of a destiny thrust upon him. My thoughts swirled as I sat there, the quiet of the night broken only by the occasional creak of the old building and the distant murmur of a passing car. I could almost feel the presence of that mysterious watcher pressing against the thin veil of night, daring me to step outside and confront the unknown. Instead, I resolved to stay inside a little longer, gathering my courage and piecing together the scattered clues from the journal. I traced my finger over the faded ink, silently promising myself that I would follow every lead, even if it meant risking my life, to protect the legacy that my uncle had left behind. In that long, fragile moment of solitude, I realized that my journey was no longer just about uncovering hidden relics or solving old puzzles. It was a test of my will, a challenge to confront the darkness that threatened to overtake me. The scratch on the lock, the solitary figure outside, and the cryptic words in the journal all merged into one undeniable truth. I was being drawn into a mystery that would change everything. And with that understanding, I knew that there was no turning back. Every step forward would bring me closer to answers, and perhaps to danger, but I had to move ahead, no matter the cost. I clutched the ancient compass in my trembling hand, its surface cold and etched with mysterious symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light of my uncle's hidden room. The moment my fingers brushed its ornate metal, a surge of energy shot through my body, sending my heart racing and my mind into a whirl of thoughts and emotions. I remembered my uncle's hushed whispers about destiny and secrets that lay hidden beneath the layers of our seemingly mundane lives. The compass spun wildly for a few agonizing moments before settling, its needle pointing unwaveringly in one direction. This silent command was both terrifying and exhilarating, as if it were beckoning me to leave behind everything I once knew and embark on a journey into the unknown. Leaving the secret room, I stepped back into the cluttered shop with a new sense of purpose. The air felt charged, and every creak of the old wooden floor echoed the call of adventure that now thrummed through my veins. I carefully tucked the compass into my jacket pocket, feeling its pulse as if it shared my own heartbeat. With each deliberate step, memories of past doubts and quiet routines melted away, replaced by a burning curiosity to discover the long-hidden truth behind the heart of eternity, a mystery my uncle had guarded so zealously. I spent hours that first night poring over the ancient map found among the relics of the secret room. The fragile paper, yellowed by time, depicted distant lands and cryptic symbols that hinted at a secret waiting to be unveiled. In the soft glow of a single lamp, I traced the intricate lines with my finger, feeling as though the map itself was guiding me toward a destiny intertwined with my own. One particular mark, a ruined monastery deep in the Scottish Highlands, captured my attention, drawing a direct line from the steady pull of the compass to a place where history and myth converged. By dawn, I had made up my mind. I set out on the first leg of my journey, my car carrying me along winding roads that cut through ancient woodlands and mist-shrouded valleys. The landscape transformed with every mile. Rolling hills gave way to craggy cliffs and narrow passes flanked by towering trees. The steady hum of the engine blended with the natural chorus of rustling leaves and distant bird calls, each sound reinforcing the quiet determination that now filled me. Every turn on the road felt charged with meaning, as if I were following footsteps laid out by time itself. I recalled my uncle's parting words, "Follow the key and trust your instincts." Now, as the compass's needle held steadfast, I trusted that inner voice guiding me toward the relic that promised both wonder and peril. The road was not without its challenges. I encountered narrow stretches along steep cliff edges, where the drop below was shrouded in swirling mists and the silence was broken only by the rush of wind. In those moments of solitude and quiet danger, I found strength in the simple truth that my journey was more than a search for lost treasures. It was a quest for meaning, a passage into the unknown where every moment held the potential for transformation. Under a star-punctured sky during a brief pause at a lonely roadside rest, I sat silently reflecting on the path ahead. The compass, resting securely in my pocket, seemed to emit a gentle, reassuring warmth. Its quiet pulse matched the rhythm of my own heart, forging a connection between the present and the promise of ancient secrets waiting to be discovered. As I gazed upward, the endless expanse of the night sky filled me with a deep sense of both wonder and resolve. With the break of dawn, the horizon blushed with hues of lavender and soft gold. I knew that today, the journey would gain new momentum, carrying me ever closer to that fabled monastery and the secrets it harbored. Clutching the compass tightly, I stepped into my car and drove forward, leaving behind the familiar and embracing the thrilling uncertainty of the road. Each mile brought me closer to a destiny written long ago, a path paved by mysteries and the silent, enduring promise of the heart's power. I arrived in Scotland under a sky heavy with gray clouds and a biting chill that made every breath feel like a struggle. The ancient monastery, perched on a rugged cliff overlooking a turbulent sea, loomed before me like a relic from a forgotten time. Its stone walls, weathered and crumbling, told stories of ages past, each crack and crevice a silent witness to centuries of hardship and mystery. I stepped through the heavy, creaking door, where the cold, stale air of the interior embraced me like an unwelcome ghost. Inside, narrow corridors stretched out into darkness, lit only by the faint, wavering light that seeped through shattered windows. Every footstep I took echoed along the stone floor, mingling with my own anxious heartbeat and the distant sound of wind howling outside. Clutching my uncle's worn journal, its pages filled with cryptic sketches and notes about the heart of eternity, I let its faded words guide me deeper into the labyrinthine passages of the monastery. The journal's instructions pointed me toward a secret hidden within these ancient walls, a secret that pulsed with danger and possibility. As I moved through twisting passageways, the oppressive air grew colder, and the shadows seemed to whisper long-forgotten secrets. The atmosphere was heavy, and every creak of the old building heightened my senses, making it feel as if I were being watched by unseen eyes. After what seemed like an eternity wandering through narrow halls, I finally discovered a secluded chamber at the heart of the monastery. In the center of the room stood a hidden altar, carved from stone and adorned with intricate patterns worn smooth by time. Resting atop the altar was a leather-bound book whose cover was cracked and edges frayed. Its pages brimmed with detailed sketches and writings chronicling the mysteries of the heart of eternity. The book exuded an aura of ancient power, a silent promise of knowledge and danger intertwined. I stepped closer, drawn by an irresistible compulsion to understand the secrets that had so haunted my uncle's past. Just as I reached out to caress the book's worn cover, a sudden movement in the darkness made me freeze. Out of the murky shadows emerged a hooded man, his eyes glinting with a sharp, calculating light beneath the low brim of his hood. His voice, deep and measured, broke the silence with a single, chilling command. "You shouldn't be here." In that split second, before I could utter a word, he lunged at me with alarming speed. The force of his attack set off a hidden mechanism within the ancient structure. The entire monastery trembled as if it were awakening from a long slumber. Stones began to fall, and the floor beneath me cracked open, revealing a yawning chasm shrouded in darkness. In the chaos, my eyes caught a glimmer of light emanating from the depths of the newly revealed chamber. Amid the swirling dust and falling debris, I saw it, a shard pulsing with a soft, eerie glow. With a surge of desperate determination, I leaped forward and grasped the cool, smooth surface of the shard. The moment my fingers closed around it, a powerful energy coursed through my body. Visions overwhelmed my mind. Raging fires, scenes of utter destruction, and flashes of an immense, mysterious power that both terrified and mesmerized me. In the midst of this sensory onslaught, a single, ghostly whisper echoed in my thoughts. It is not meant to be whole. For a long, suspended moment, time seemed to slow as I stood there, the shard pulsing steadily in my grasp like a heartbeat. The hooded man halted his advance and observed me with an unreadable expression, while the very walls of the monastery shuddered in response to the tumult. The leather-bound book on the altar lay forgotten as the magnitude of what had just occurred sank in. In that heartbeat of eternity, I realized that my life was irrevocably altered. The shard was not merely a fragment of an ancient relic. It was a beacon of fate, a tangible piece of the heart of eternity that held the key to mysteries and dangers beyond my wildest imaginings. Gathering every ounce of courage, I took a hesitant step forward. I knew that the quest for the remaining pieces of the heart was now a race against time, a perilous journey that would test my resolve and challenge. The cold, misty silence of the monastery, the fallen stones, and even the oppressive weight of destiny itself bore witness to this turning point. Clasping the shard tightly, I steeled myself to venture deeper into the unknown recesses of the ancient building, aware that every moment could bring further revelations or greater perils. With the shard's quiet pulse guiding me like the beat of a hidden drum, I moved forward into the darkness, determined to unravel the legacy my uncle had entrusted to me, even if it meant facing the most unfathomable dangers that lay ahead. I raced through the cold stone corridors of the ruined monastery, my heart pounding so fiercely I was sure the sound would alert any lurking enemy. I barely had time to catch my breath when the hooded man reappeared from the dark recesses of the building. His eyes, filled with a cruel determination, locked onto mine as he advanced steadily. I clutched the shard, the first piece of the heart, tightly in my hand, its cool glow a silent promise of both power and peril. In that moment, I realized that my life had been irreversibly changed, and I was now entangled in a dangerous pursuit that left no room for retreat. I bolted out of the monastery through a narrow, crumbling exit, the hooded man in hot pursuit. His presence was like a shadow that clung to my every step, and with each passing second, I felt the weight of his intent pressing closer. I managed to escape into the murky twilight of the Scottish countryside, where the dense fog swallowed the path ahead. I slowed only when I reached a hidden alley behind the ancient structure, desperate to catch my breath and gather my thoughts. It was there, in the relative safety of solitude, that I first heard a low, measured voice behind me. "Marcus Vale," the voice stated, cold and unwavering. I turned sharply to see a man emerging from the gloom, a man whose reputation had preceded him. Marcus Vale was a ruthless treasure hunter, known for his relentless pursuit of rare relics, and he was not one to let obstacles, or unwilling heirs like me, stand in his way. His eyes glinted with the promise of violence and greed as he stepped forward. I felt a surge of dread, but also a strange resolve. I had spent years living in the shadow of my uncle's secrets, and now, faced with this living embodiment of greed, I could not falter. Barely managing to form a response, I recalled the wisdom of Dr. Adrian Cole, the historian who had become my reluctant mentor. I had turned to him as soon as I clutched the shard, a desperate bid to understand the symbols and the legacy hidden in my uncle's journal. Dr. Cole's grim analysis had connected the mysterious symbols to a long-forgotten sunken temple in Greece, where the second piece of the heart was rumored to lie hidden. His warning echoed in my mind. If the second piece was indeed there, I would not be the only one seeking it. Marcus Vale's presence now confirmed that I was treading a treacherous path. A race against time, and a rival whose only aim was to seize the power of the heart for himself. Marcus took a step closer, his gaze never leaving mine, and I knew that words would soon give way to a violent clash. With my heart hammering in my chest, I bolted again, determined to put as much distance as possible between us. My feet pounded against the uneven cobblestones as I dashed through narrow lanes and over crumbling walls. The sound of Marcus's heavy steps echoed behind me, a grim reminder that every second counted. In the midst of the chase, I could only think of Dr. Cole's solemn advice and the cryptic maps that promised further clues hidden in the depths of the Mediterranean. I needed to reach a safe haven where I could plan my next move, and that thought propelled me forward even as exhaustion threatened to overtake me. I found refuge in an abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of a small village, its broken windows and creaking door offering little protection from the storm of my thoughts. Once inside, I collapsed onto a threadbare cot, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away, leaving me with a cold, numbing dread. I knew Marcus would not relent, and that he was as relentless in his quest as I was in my desperate search for answers. The shard in my hand pulsed softly, a constant reminder of the legacy I had inherited and the dangerous journey that lay ahead. As I sat in the dim light of the farmhouse, I allowed myself a brief moment to process the enormity of my situation. I was now locked in a dangerous pursuit, not just for ancient relics and hidden treasures, but for the truth that could shatter or save everything I once held dear. Every decision from this point forward was a matter of life and death, and I could only hope that the lessons of the past and the clues left by my uncle would be enough to guide me through the perils that Marcus Vale and his ruthless ambitions had set in motion. The chase had only just begun, and I realized with a sinking heart that there was no turning back from the dangerous road ahead. I arrived in Greece with a heavy heart and a mind full of questions. The journey had taken me far from the familiar landscapes of Scotland, and now I stood on a rocky shore where ancient whispers mingled with the relentless crashing of waves against jagged cliffs. I had hired Luca, a local diver with a steady hand and quiet confidence, to guide me to a sunken temple that legends claimed housed the second shard of the heart. As the boat sliced through the dark water, the air was thick with salt and silent anticipation, and every ripple seemed to carry hints of secrets buried in the deep. Luca's calm eye surveyed the horizon as he readied his diving gear, and with a simple nod, he motioned for me to join him in the small inflatable dinghy. I clutched the worn leather pouch containing my first shard, a reminder of the dangerous journey I had already endured. Feeling its cool weight against my chest as we moved steadily away from the shore, the sea grew eerily calm as we neared the coordinates marked on the faded map my uncle had left behind. Slowly, the outline of a vast, forgotten structure emerged from the depths, a temple swallowed by time and the relentless pull of the ocean. Its crumbling stone columns, softened by centuries of water, rose like silent sentinels guarding mysteries long concealed. My heart pounded as Luca guided the dinghy toward the submerged ruin. Once we reached the temple's entrance, he secured our vessel and helped me into his diving suit. The transition from the warm air above to the cool, shadowed world beneath was jarring, and as I submerged, the light of the sun dimmed to a faint glow filtered through the water. We swam along a narrow passageway into the temple's interior, where the silence was profound and every movement echoed in the still water. Beams of light broke through gaps in the stone ceiling, illuminating a circular chamber that held a quiet majesty. At the center of the room, a stone pedestal supported the second shard of the heart. Its surface shimmered with an unearthly glow, pulsing softly as though it possessed a heartbeat of its own. The sight of the relic filled me with both wonder and a deep, inexplicable dread. I moved slowly, every muscle tensed with caution, ready for whatever might emerge from the temple's dark recesses. Just as I extended my hand toward the pedestal, a sudden ripple in the water startled me. From the shadow of a crumbling wall, a serpent-like creature began to emerge. Its scales glistened with a luminous sheen, and its eyes burned with a fierce, otherworldly light. The creature's sinuous body moved with silent precision, and for a long, breathless moment, I found myself frozen in terror as I stared into its glowing gaze. Instinct and survival surged through me. I recoiled sharply as the creature lunged with astonishing speed. The water churned around me, and panic clutched at my heart. In that desperate moment, I remembered the ancient method described in my uncle's journal, a way to create a resonant sound that might scare even the most relentless foe. My eyes darted around until I spotted a metal rod wedged among debris near a fallen column. With trembling hands, I seized it and struck a nearby stone pillar with all my might. The blow reverberated through the water in a deep, resounding boom that filled the chamber and startled the creature. It recoiled sharply, its advance halted by the sudden noise. Seizing the moment, I plunged forward and grasped the second shard from its pedestal. The relic's glow intensified in my hand, a silent confirmation that I had secured another piece of the heart. The guardian serpent circled in confusion for several agonizing seconds before slipping silently back into the dark recesses of the temple. Luca's signal broke the tense silence, and together we began our ascent through the cool, shadowy water. The journey upward felt endless as I clung tightly to the shard, its otherworldly pulse a steady reminder of the legacy I now carried. Breaking through the surface, gasping in the fresh air, I was met by Luca's wide, questioning eyes. "What the hell was that?" he murmured, his voice thick with shock and awe. I could only shake my head, still reeling from the encounter with the guardian serpent, a creature that seemed to have risen straight from myth to protect secrets meant to remain hidden. As our boat rocked gently on the calm sea, I sat in a moment of heavy silence, the shard pulsing softly in my grasp. I knew that this relic, along with all those yet to be found, would lead me deeper into a mystery filled with peril and wonder, a mystery that promised to reshape my life forever. I drove through the rain-soaked streets of Athens with a heavy heart and a sense of foreboding that refused to let go. The night had been long and full of restless memories, and as I stared out at the blurred city lights, I knew that the chase was far from over. With 2 shards of the heart securely hidden away, I had finally traced the location of the third, a secret monastery in Nepal, far from the modern chaos of Europe. But before I could even consider a moment's reprieve, Marcus Vale reappeared in my life like a dark specter. This time, he was not alone. His mercenaries, cold and ruthless, swarmed the narrow back alleys of Athens. I ducked into a narrow doorway, my breath quick and ragged as I pressed my back against the cold stone wall, listening to their heavy boots echo in the distance. I clutched the pouch containing the shards, each piece pulsating with a mysterious, almost tangible power. I remembered my uncle's fading words and the long nights spent poring over his journal. I had thought I was ready for this dangerous quest, yet nothing could have prepared me for the betrayal that was about to unfold. As I navigated the labyrinthine streets, trying to lose my pursuers in the maze of ancient ruins and modern buildings, my mind raced with questions. What drove Marcus Vale to such lengths? Was it the promise of power, or was there something more personal in his relentless pursuit of the heart? The answers remained as murky as the midnight sky over Athens. I finally found a safe haven in a small, run-down safe house on the outskirts of the city, a crumbling apartment that reeked of dampness and lost hope. I sank onto a threadbare chair, trying to steady my pounding heart and piece together my next move. It was there, in the suffocating silence of that dark room, that I heard the footsteps again. The sound was deliberate, echoing down the hall as if the walls themselves were betraying me. I raced to the window and peered out, my eyes straining in the gloom. There, standing under the weak glow of a street lamp, was Marcus Vale, his face obscured by shadows and a cold smile that promised nothing but destruction. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. I recalled how, just a few days before, I had trusted him, believing that his knowledge of the ancient relics might help me piece together my uncle's scattered clues. But trust is a fragile thing when ambitions clash. In that moment, I felt the heavy weight of my loss. Before I could react, the door burst open, and masked men stormed in, their intentions as clear as the glint in their eyes. They overpowered me with brutal efficiency, and in the ensuing struggle, I felt a cold, metallic sensation as one of them snatched the pouch from my grasp. The shards, symbols of my legacy and my only hope of uncovering the truth behind the heart, were ripped away from me. I fought desperately, throwing punches and yelling in vain protest, but the numbers were against me. Amid the chaos, Marcus Vale stepped forward, his eyes burning with a fierce intensity as he surveyed his ill-gotten prize. His betrayal was complete, He had turned against me at the very moment when the pieces of the puzzle should have come together. I watched in disbelief as he gathered the shards, each one pulsating with an eerie light, and then he vanished into the night with his mercenaries in tow. Left alone in that dark, suffocating room, I sank to the floor in despair. The room, once a refuge, now felt like a tomb holding the remnants of my shattered trust and dreams. My heart pounded in my ears as I struggled to accept the harsh reality. I had been betrayed by someone I had once considered an ally. But even as the betrayal stung, a deeper resolve began to kindle within me. I remembered my uncle's voice, urging me to protect our legacy at all costs, and I knew that giving up was not an option. In the stillness of that moment, as the rain drummed against the window and my breath came in ragged gasps, I vowed that I would reclaim what was stolen. The journey was far from over, and though Marcus Vale's treachery had struck a devastating blow, I was determined to press on. I would follow the clues, trust in the memory of my uncle, and journey to Nepal to find the hidden monastery that held the promise of the third shard. Even in the face of betrayal, my quest for the truth of the heart burned brighter than ever, fueling a determination that refused to be extinguished, no matter how dark the night became. I found myself deep in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, where the humid air pressed against my skin and the ancient trees whispered secrets of a past long forgotten. I had tracked Marcus Vale through winding jungle paths and murky streams until I arrived at a hidden clearing, a place that held the final piece of the heart. Before me, in a ruined stone structure overtaken by vines and moss, Marcus stood beside a weathered pedestal. On that pedestal lay the final shard, its surface pulsing with a soft, eerie glow that seemed to breathe with a life of its own. As I watched from behind a clump of ferns, my pulse quickened. Marcus's eyes were fixed on the relic, and his expression shifted from determination to something like despair. I could see the final piece clicking into place with the other shards he had collected, forming a whole that shimmered with an otherworldly light. For a long, heart-stopping moment, the jungle fell silent except for the distant call of unseen creatures and the rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. The assembled heart radiated power that rippled through the air, and I felt the earth tremble underfoot. The light it emitted was both beautiful and terrifying, casting shifting shadows on the crumbling walls of the ancient ruin. Then, as if the relic had awakened a force beyond human control, the ground began to shake violently. The once still clearing erupted with a roar as the power of the heart surged outward, its energy shaking the very foundations of the jungle. Marcus's scream rang out, a cry of agony and shock, as he staggered backwards. I knew in that moment that the heart was not a source of salvation, but a curse that brought only destruction. The air around me buzzed with raw energy, and every instinct screamed that nothing good could come from such concentrated power. I recalled the countless nights I had spent poring over my uncle's journal, absorbing his warnings and piecing together clues that now led me to this fateful crossroads. His gentle voice and determined eyes had once given me strength, and now, facing the reality of the heart's terrible power, I realized that I alone held the choice to change its destiny. With my heart pounding and hands trembling, I stepped out of the shadows. Each footstep felt heavy as I advanced slowly toward the pedestal, the light of the heart reflecting in my eyes. Marcus, still reeling from the shock, tried to regain control, but the assembled relic pulsed with an intensity that threatened to consume us both. I could feel its energy tugging at my very soul, as if urging me to harness its power, yet my instincts screamed that its power was a poison meant to corrupt. I knew that if I allowed it to remain whole, the curse would spread far beyond this ruined temple, endangering everything I held dear. Time seemed to slow as I reached out a shaking hand toward the heart. In that charged moment, every lesson from my past, every word of warning from my uncle, and every ounce of courage I possessed converged into a single, decisive thought. I could not let Marcus, nor anyone else, become a slave to this ancient curse. I had to end its cycle of pain and destruction. As I stood before the relic, the jungle around me roared with a rising crescendo of natural fury, a final, desperate warning from nature itself. I raised my hand, and, with a deep, steadying breath, I grasped the assembled heart. In that instant, a blinding flash of light exploded around us, and the raw, untamed energy surged through my veins like a tidal wave. The very ground beneath us cracked and splintered, and the oppressive force of the heart pressed upon my chest. Marcus's eyes widened in disbelief as the relic's light grew impossibly bright. Without a second thought, I made my choice. I pulled back with all my strength, releasing the heart from my grasp so that it could crash onto the cold, hard stone of the pedestal. The impact was immediate and cataclysmic. The heart shattered into countless fragments, its searing light splintering into the dark canopy above and fading into nothingness. A deep, resonant silence fell over the clearing as the tremors subsided. Marcus sank to his knees, his anguished cries swallowed by the hushed jungle, while I stood there, heart heavy with loss and relief. I had chosen to destroy the relic rather than allow its cursed power to corrupt our world. In that moment, I understood that my journey had never been about gaining strength from the relic. It was about protecting the legacy my uncle had left behind, even if it meant sacrificing what many would call power. As I gazed upon the scattered shards and the ruined pedestal, the weight of my choice settled upon me. I knew that life would never be the same, and the scars of this day would mark me forever. Yet, I also felt a quiet resolve, a promise that I would honor my uncle's memory and guard against the lure of dangerous power, no matter the cost. I had never felt so small and yet so determined in all my life. The chaos of the ruins and the echo of Marcus's screams still lingered in the heavy air around me. I stood among the scattered remnants of the heart, a powerful relic that had promised so much but brought only ruin. The blast of its shattered light had almost consumed me, but in that final moment I made a choice. I chose to destroy the heart, to break its cursed hold forever, even if it meant my own soul would be marked by the loss of its power. I could feel the cold stone beneath my feet tremble as the shards of the relic lay scattered in every direction. The energy that had once pulsed like a living thing was now quiet, and the heavy silence that followed spoke louder than any cry of agony. As I slowly regained my senses in the aftermath, I turned to see the ruin around me begin to collapse. The temple, which had once stood as a silent guardian of secrets, now crumbled into dust and echoes. Every stone that fell was a reminder of the danger the heart had brought into our world. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of all that had happened. Memories of my uncle, his gentle guidance and firm belief in protecting our legacy flooded my mind. I recalled the long nights spent reading his journal and the promise in his eyes when he spoke of treasures that were more than wealth. They were truths that had to be guarded. With each passing moment, the chaos grew. The ground shook, and I knew that nature itself was rebelling against the cursed relic. I could no longer stand by and let this force endanger everything I loved. I raised my hand, and in that moment of clarity, I felt the strength of my resolve. I had to make things right. The power that Marcus Vale had sought, the power that threatened to corrupt and destroy, was not meant for any one man. Clenching my jaw, I stepped forward, determined to seal away the darkness that had tainted the heart. I gathered the shards carefully, avoiding the dangerous remnants of their energy, and with a steady hand, I cast them into a deep, hidden chasm revealed by the collapsing temple. As I watched the fragments vanish into the abyss, a wave of relief washed over me. The relic was no longer whole. Its cursed promise was broken. In that quiet moment after the chaos, I realized that my journey was not just about a relic, but about understanding my own heart. The legacy of my uncle was not in the cursed object itself, but in the lessons he had taught me about love, loss, and the courage to do what is right. I thought of Rachel, her laughter that once cut deep, and wondered if somewhere, beyond the pain and betrayal, there might be a path back to forgiveness and new beginnings. The ruins of the temple slowly gave way to nature's reclaiming touch as vines and earth began to cover the scars of the past. I knew the world was healing, and in that healing, I saw hope. I walked for hours under the gentle warmth of the emerging sun, each step taking me further away from the horrors of the ruined temple. The forest whispered its own stories as I passed. The rustle of leaves and the murmur of distant waters created a soft, natural hymn. I sensed my uncle's spirit in every gentle breeze, urging me to keep moving and to find meaning in every hardship. I recalled his kind voice and steady gaze, and the wisdom he left behind in his journal, which filled me with a quiet strength. He had once told me that every treasure in life comes with a price, and that the true worth of an inheritance is measured not in riches but in the lessons learned along the way. My thoughts turned to Marcus Vale, a man whose greed had nearly torn apart the delicate balance of fate. In his eyes, I saw not only ambition but a desperate hunger for control over forces never meant to be mastered. His betrayal was a harsh lesson in the cruelty that can arise when power is pursued without wisdom. Yet, in that betrayal, I found clarity. I realized that my journey was not about competing for power, but about choosing the right path for the future. The relic was a symbol of the eternal struggle between greed and the human spirit, and by destroying it, I had chosen hope over despair. As the hours passed, I began to see the beauty hidden in the aftermath of chaos. The broken stones and fallen relics, once symbols of ancient power, now lay still, bathed in the soft glow of the morning light. They reminded me that even the most powerful curses can be undone by a single act of courage. With each step, I felt the weight of the past lift from my shoulders, replaced by a lightness of spirit I had not felt in years. I knew my journey would continue through trials and tribulations, yet I would face them with the strength of my convictions and the memory of my uncle's love. Now, as I enter a small village at the edge of the forest, I carry not only the pain of betrayal and loss, but also the hope of a future where truth and love prevail over darkness. Every act of kindness here reinforces my belief that even in a world filled with shadows, there is always a glimmer of light waiting to be embraced. My inheritance was never a curse. It was a reminder that true power lies in the choices we make, even when the world around us crumbles.